The election season is over. The scoreboard is what it was. So let's start by having a conversation about, was this a free and fair election? That is the hot topic. That is what everyone is discussing on the internet. And I want to tell you what my viewpoint is based on the information that I have seen. As things stand right now, it is my view that the South African election was free and fair. That's my view. When it comes to elections, the things that make an election unfair and unfree are being suppressed from being able to campaign, intimidation, violence, being suppressed from accessing the media, or even there not being a media. In South Africa, what we have seen is the best democracy on this continent, excluding no country on this continent. South Africa has a robust media. It has an independent electoral commission by and large. There are some people who obviously were in the ANC and are now commissioners, etc., etc. However, the electoral commission is independent. It can be influenced, but it is independent. Okay? And also, we have not seen levels of political violence or intimidation which can say this election is unfree and unfair. That's my viewpoint based on everything that I've seen. I've seen the concerns that were raised in the Western Cape, in KwaZulu-Natal, and I was not able to ascertain from my viewpoint anything material. I was not able to do that. And so I cannot participate in a discourse around that and say to you that I think something happened that was funny. I don't think so. I think that the election was free and fair. Having said that, I think that the IEC messed up a lot. I think that they were not ready and they had not battle tested their technology. I think that they were not ready for the third ballot. And I think that they were not ready for the administration of the Section 24As. I think that having a voter's roll which is not in alphabetical order, that's a rookie mistake. When you go to marathons, they put stuff in alphabetical order. Marathons. And this right here is the biggest logistical operation that South Africa does every 5 years. You need to be ready. It was not nice to see students queuing into the dark, to see people voting at 5 a.m. the following day. Those things are an indictment on the IEC. They are also an indictment on the people who changed the rules, Parliament itself, because some of these rules were designed to make particular groups have a more difficult time voting. They were designed to frustrate voters and leave them in queues. And the idea was, some people who live in KwaZulu-Natal but work in Gauteng will not be able to vote. The other idea was that, people who live in the suburbs or whatever won't be able to in the township, won't be able to go to the suburbs to vote. It's some very voter hostile stuff, if you ask me. I think that there needs to be a review of some of the ways that the election process in and of itself is handled. And we know from the scenes that we saw that there does need to be such a review. It's clear from the scenes. It's not something that we can deny. It's not something that we can reject. None of that makes the election unfree and unfair. That is a very high threshold. We've seen bad elections in Zimbabwe, in Mozambique, all across Africa, Uganda, where they arrest opposition leaders. Do you know that the opposition, one of the opposition challengers in Chad got killed, was assassinated early in the year? That's what they do there. So I think that the South African election was free and was fair. Let's look at the scoreboard. Let's discuss the winners, the losers. Let's talk about it. So ANC lost a lot of seats and they really deserve to lose a lot of seats. They do. Because unemployment went up. Poverty went up. The rand went down. Right? Load shedding went up. Water availability went down. That's not something that is a good story to tell. That's not something that you can say, let's work together to do more. More of breaking pipes. More of what? The audits in the municipalities. Mostly dirty audits. Nothing clean there. right? So they did deserve. There was bad governance. There was bad governance. There was bad leadership. And then they made the biggest strategic blunder of not prosecuting, let me say rather, persecuting somebody who was prominent and dominant in their own organization. The decisions taken to villainize, alienate Jacob Zuma came back to haunt the ANC. From the time that President Ramaphosa was speaking about 9 wasted years, there were many people who were in the Zuma administration, who were also in the Ramaphosa administration, who thought that this is not going to end well. You cannot say all of our work in all of those 9 years was worth nothing. And now the question becomes, whose years were worse? Whose years were worse? Because under Zuma, there was electricity. Under Zuma, there was higher employment. Who was a better president between Cyril Ramaphosa and Jacob Zuma? Many people used to give President Ramaphosa a pass because of the idea that he was a businessman, he was making his own money. And then we found out that some of the companies that he was associated with really did dodgy things. For example, Glencore. Glencore paid an admission of guilt in the UK. They paid an admission of guilt in America. What were they admitting guilt for? They were admitting guilt for manipulating the prices of commodities in Africa. They were price fixing. Billions that they paid. Go Google it. It's out there. And then the second thing that they admitted guilt for was for bribing African politicians. I'm not saying anybody bribed anybody, but what I'm saying is those kind of things, right, do not lend to a clean reputation for anybody associated with those things. Then there was the Phala Phala scandal, right? What happened in Parliament is that Parliament came together, the ANC, to protect President Ramaphosa. They said, no, the Phala Phala matter will be taken by President Ramaphosa to the courts, and therefore the process in Parliament is premature, and therefore, they're going to vote against the particular procedure to go ahead with the impeachment inquiry because they were waiting for the issues to be taken to court. And then when President Ramaphosa tried to approach the Constitutional Court to get a review of the Section 89 panel, they refused. And then he withdrew his legal proceedings. There is no actual application for review on the Section 89 panel report at this particular point. What I'm saying is, there was a portrayal that Jacob Zuma is a corrupt leader and that these other leaders are not corrupt. But during COVID-19, we saw massive amounts of corruption. Digital Vibe scandal, Royal Butler scandal, scandals with the Tembisa Hospital, 1 billion looted that we know of, scandals with school fumigation. There were so many scandals, and we saw how much face masks were being overcharged. Those cloth face masks, they were being overpriced. They were selling them for like 50 rands at some point. And then some of the money was coming from government to make sure that the public health interventions were given. They were saying that even guys on the street need to have face masks, and so the state must provide for them. Otherwise, they're going to become a health risk to other people. We saw all of this stuff. So the ANC took a very big hit, and I think they deserved it because they did not deliver. And number two, they made mistakes internally, which allowed for Jacob Zuma to then have space to create the Umkhonto weSizwe party. And I also don't think that they ran a good campaign. This Kamduze thing, you remember that Kamduze thing? What was that? People didn't come Duze. They didn't actually come Duze. It was not a good campaign, to be quite honest with you. And then they thought, no, let's bring Begi. Let's bring Tokyo Sekwale, spiritual white boy. And then, we've seen a lot. It didn't work. So let me move on because I don't want to make this too long. Obviously, you've seen all of the stuff happening, but interesting entrance into Parliament. Bosa will be in Parliament. I think Mmusi Maimane does deserve a seat. I love what he's saying about education. I think that he's a good guy, deserves to be there. Rise is also in there, 2 seats. That's great. I think it's good to have new parties. Cope, bye-bye. Didn't cope. It's over for you. Good. It's not looking good. Good. You played yourself. And that's where things stand. So the last thing I want to discuss is this coalition conversation. We're seeing now, especially today, that the investor markets are indicating that they want an ANC and DA coalition. They are saying that we've heard from all kinds of business people saying this is going to be the best thing for the rand. This is going to be the best thing for the markets. This is going to be the best thing for investors. That's what we're seeing. So it's beginning to seem likely that the ANC is going to consider this idea seriously. But just focusing on this particular coalition, and I'm going to make a special coalition episode in and of itself. Will it help or hurt the ANC? The NEC is the custodian of the ANC in between conferences. They may feel that let's just do this deal for the markets, for continuity, to keep President Ramaphosa on the table. And we heard Fikile Mbalula saying that any deal that involves the removal of Ramaphosa is off the table. So the NEC may end up going with this deal. President Ramaphosa has good relationships with the business community, and they may feel that this is good. But I don't think that the voters of the ANC are going to support this in the next election, and it may lead to the very end of the ANC. So you may buy 5 years, but at the end of that 5 years, then what happens? Why do I say this? Many voters of the ANC do have an ideological framework, and that ideological framework is not the liberalism or neoliberalism. It is more socialism, and it is actually for social welfare. The DA political framework is we oppose affirmative action, we oppose BE, we oppose employment equity, we oppose the minimum wage. They want to scrap the minimum wage. So the DA has been viewed by many in the ANC as being the enemy. And they even ran a campaign saying that if the DA wins, the grants will go away. And for many years, Helen Zille has been saying that, colonialism wasn't all that bad. What I'm trying to put across is that even though the DA is saying that it's open to doing this coalition, and even though their voters may support this because they will be able to use the 22% to wield power and get a president who has pro-market policies that they like privatizing water, privatizing electricity, privatizing Transnet. All of these are things that Pravin Gordhan did and wanted to do even more of. These are the kind of things that Rupert said are good things to do. So obviously, the liberal community will be like, this is good. Market liberalization is good. But market liberalization is not good for everybody. Go and ask the Americans. High inequality and large separation between the haves and the have-nots. But that's a discussion for another day. I think that if the ANC does this deal with the DA, who many people view as an embodiment of ideologies contra to the ANC, that wants to scrap cadre deployment, that has accused ANC of corruption and crime, that people will view that as insincere, and they will then punish the ANC at the next election. You may think this is trivial, but think about this. The ANC lost 17%. 17%. That's a lot to lose in one election. Can they afford to lose another 17%, 24%, 34%? Will they become the next COPE? COPE was saying that they will never become COPE. But now COPE is COPE. And good is not good. My point is, you may think that your party will last forever. But even forever has an end in politics. What do you think, though? Let's have a conversation. Till the next one. Oh yeah, don't forget to comment, like, share, subscribe, all of that stuff, all that good stuff. Put on a notification. Till the next one. This is just a short episode. Look out for a longer episode tomorrow, diving into all of these coalition stuff. This is just, just to have a conversation, get thoughts flowing. Till the next one, for real this time. Africans, when we say bye-bye, then we come back and they will say, now we're going. That's that. Cheers.